Ubisoft has sponsored this video for me to show this game off to you guys. A few weeks ago, you might have caught some of my closed beta live streams, but they're now having an open beta where you can test it yourself February 9th through the 12th. So this is now a direct order. Click the link in the description. For Honor is one of the most badass games that I've played and rewarding, depending on if you can do well. And I'll have some more tips coming for you guys, but in this video, I just wanted to start out with the basics. This is a melee fighting game that not only has its 1v1s, but 2v2 and even 4v4 with objectives, similar to kind of your Conquest or your Domination game modes, where you actually have to go and capture different zones, hold them, but to win, you have to execute everybody on the other team. Now, I've never really been very good at any of the street fighting games or melee combat games, but this game is not like anything I've ever played before. Compared to the pre-alpha to now the closed beta, I definitely did notice some improvements made to the mouse and keyboard controls, but I found myself personally preferring the actual physical controller instead. Either way, every button you press is extremely critical because this is all based on reaction times, countering the enemy, or putting pressure on them. There is no hope for button smashing in this game. You have to use precise movements and abilities in order to win. But the good thing is there was a lot of really good training in the game and ways to practice to hone your skills, and it wasn't too complex to where it put me off from it, and I was able to learn it in just a couple of hours. My favorite part, though, is that there actually is a skill gap, where if you can actually learn to play the game, you'll do better, and as you master each of the 12 different characters, at least that's how many are at launch, you'll see significant improvements as you learn not only your own character, but then the enemy characters and how they're able to counter you. At its core, it's designed as a third-person game. You have control to run wherever you want and even interact with the environment, pushing people into spikes, fire, or even off a cliff completely. In terms of the fighting mechanics, there's essentially only 3 zones to worry about: top, left, and right. When you're fighting against somebody, you can see what their stance is set up as and what direction they're going to be attacking from. As long as you match whatever direction they're attacking from, you're going to block their attacks. And the same thing is true for them. So when you're attacking, you want to switch up where you're attacking from and try and put a chain together. After you get that basic down, which is pretty standard, it's time to start learning some more of the advanced stuff, though, including dodges, which, if you time it right when they're attacking, will leave them pretty exposed. You can parry their attack, which if you swing at the exact same time they are, your weapons will collide and you'll send them back. And of course, my personal favorite, and what I think is the most dominant ability in the game, the guard break, which if they're blocking every single thing you're throwing at them, you get up close to them, hit guard break, and they're left exposed, standing like an idiot, where you can push them right off a cliff, put an axe right through their skull. But just like everything else in this game, there's a counter to it, and that's where the reflexes come in and knowing what buttons to hit. The good thing is, though, as I mentioned, it doesn't get too complex. That's really the scope of it. After that, you just learn all of the different characters' abilities, what they specialize in, if they do have anything unique about them, like some characters having shields versus characters with dual-wielding daggers, axes, or even a heavy two-handed axe or spear. As I mentioned, this goes up to 4v4 game modes, though, which means that you could be outnumbered in those fights. They have another mechanic as well called Revenge, where as you block attacks, you build up this revenge meter, which, again, each of the characters will have slightly different abilities, but overall it'll make you more powerful when you activate it. So when you get 2 versus 1 or 3 versus 1, that revenge meter builds up extremely quickly and gives you better odds against more people. It's still too early to determine how well balanced the overall game is. I was finding some characters to be pretty powerful, and certain ones will have advantages over others. But the game devs seem to be especially interested in the balance and improving the game, especially, I guess, since it is beta right now. But to Ubisoft's credit, they've been doing a really good job with keeping up their games and patching them, especially when you look at something like Rainbow Six Siege, with which this game definitely does have a feeling of, with all the different characters in this, with their own unique weapons and ability chains. They've taken these characters or heroes a step further, though, in that there's 3 factions in the game. the Vikings, Knights, and Samurai. When you first start up the game, you have to pledge your allegiance to one of these, although it doesn't limit what you can play. You just choose one, and as you win and complete games, you'll be able to deploy these assets on a game board, which is kind of like the default background when you're on the menus. And it's specifically this aspect of the game that is also cross-platform, in that if I'm on PC, some of you guys watching are on Xbox and PlayStation, but you're contributing your assets, we're all looking at the same game board and contributing assets to the same thing, which at the end of seasons will give you bonuses, special unlocks, and we don't have all the details of it yet, but at least for this open beta, whichever faction wins will get a golden emblem frame. During the beta, Ubisoft has made me a general for the Vikings, which you can see, again, more details about on that link in the description. And during that closed beta a few weeks ago, the Vikings absolutely conquered the territories, almost taking the entire board at one point, but ending in the lead as well. So when you guys sign up for the open beta, I suggest you join me on the Viking side. But besides being able to customize your emblem, you can also do a lot of customization for each individual character. They're each going to have their own level up track, and as you're playing the game, you'll scavenge gear, as well as you can get gear from different unlocks and spending some of the currency that you earn in-game. But you'll be able to customize and specialize in maybe reviving people if you're playing in a multiplayer situation 4v4, or specializing in throws if you're playing a lot of 1v1. As you play, you'll unlock new gear, you can upgrade it, customize it, and you can even customize the colors, the looks of it, add ornaments to it, even adding like spikes to your shoulders or some flash to your helmet. And as you progress and level up the characters, you'll also unlock feats, which are used mainly in the more 4v4 situations. Feats are essentially, as you're playing the objective, unlocks that your character will get just for that game. That might be a one-time use quick heal, or a passive ability to increase your damage now that you've unlocked the first tier or second tier. And you customize these loadouts before you go into the match, so you can play your role better. Overall, this is a game type that I had never really experienced before or spent a lot of time with, and I was extremely impressed, not only with how well it was to train, how fast-paced it was and intense it was, but for how interesting all of the gameplay mechanics are and how realistic all of the fighting actually looks. Oh yeah, and if you finish an enemy with a heavy strike, the decapitations and brutal executions are so rewarding. A word of warning though, this game is not something you can just pick up and immediately play. You have to practice and actually learn it. And it can still be frustrating even once you get the mechanics down. And that brings me to what my biggest complaint in the game is going up against an unbalanced fight. Somebody who already is a much higher level, already has higher level gear unlocked, and you're at an extreme disadvantage. Especially when you're just trying to learn, seeing your head constantly rolling on the floor, it's pretty discouraging. But besides that, sometimes it felt like the buttons were just not registering when you hit it, and I found a trick to actually help me with this that I'll talk about in my next tips video, and potentially a lot of that could have just been user error and bad timing. But it felt like from time to time there was just ones that I should have hit. This is still just a beta though, and they can adjust timings, and it may be slightly different in the finished product. And there's still room for them to improve and optimize matchmaking and hopefully improve the servers as well, as there was some issues during the closed beta connecting to servers. But I did over time learn that there's a lot more to account for than just hitting the button at the right time. Depending on where your character's positioned, like if you're up close against a wall to your right and you try and attack from the right, your character will actually hit that wall and the attack won't go through. Or if you're stunned, even if you hit the button perfectly, your character just physically can't respond because they're stunned or on the ground. All of these mechanics and gameplay though also carry through to the single player, which I've not actually gotten a chance to play myself, but there's a single player as well as co-op option to play through it. But my biggest hope for the full version of the game, even if it doesn't come out right away, is a competitive matchmaking, a 4v4 mode, maybe even a 1v1 mode where you can really go in and test your skill. That's where I think you're going to see a lot more longevity in the game, is where you can actually have some type of competitiveness or rank with it. Let me know what you guys think about this game in the comment section below. Click the link in the description to see even more information about For Honor. Thanks again to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. If you did enjoy it, give it a like rating. It's hugely appreciated, especially when I upload new content like this that I haven't really featured much of. That's it for this one, though. Thanks so much for watching. This is SwagMountain 64, over and out.